There we go. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, Coach Ralph. Wow, Coach.
Yeah, I think that's one of those wins which hopefully we'll look back on and say, yeah, that was a big one.
Darwin Nunez to save the day. Man.
Yeah. I mean, Darwin takes so much criticism, and I do think he's a good striker. I do think he's a good player, and he works ever so hard. But I'm happy for him that he came up trumps when it mattered at a key time.
Yeah, I was thinking about, I was on the American Scousers earlier, and we were all talking about when you think about these like late game winners, you think about Forest, you think about Newcastle United, and now we're going to be thinking about this, and they're all Darwin Nunez goals.
Yes, yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it gives him confidence going forward.
Yeah, so Liverpool wins 2-0. Darwin Nunez scores in the 91st and the 93rd minute. No thanks to Peacock for showing us what happened. But I was talking to Coach right before this, and in the first goal, literally the pass that Harvey Elliott put through to Trent, like it went out for me. Coach got to see that goal, and then it went out for him. So, man, Peacock, don't do that to us again. 91st minute goal and 93rd minute goal to win it. Unbelievable. Coach, the game was a very competitive game. And although Liverpool, from a statistical standpoint, dominated, Brentford were very dangerous. And Mbeumo on the right-hand side, every time the ball was sprayed to him, I was worried. Brentford is a good team, but thank God we got the 3 points.
Yeah, Brentford's an excellent team, great coach. They have a lot of good players, and they have plans. They go into every game with a plan, and they tend to execute the plan very, very well. So I thought it was an interesting contrast, say, to the Nottingham Forest game. Forest defended well, and they had like a vice-like grip on the game. I thought in the first half, it didn't look like Liverpool could score in the first half because Forest was just so tight, playing to their plan. Brentford did get players behind the ball. They were very competitive. They would put their bodies on the line, but they also had more of an attacking plan, say, than Forest. And Mbeumo and Wissa up front have got some serious pace. And in fact, they had a very good chance early on in the game, where really they should have scored.
Yeah, the team. I think it's hard not to like Brentford, just like as a team that you watch kind of from a neutral standpoint. They have good players. They score goals. So it was a tough game, and. Coach, Darwin, like you said, has taken a lot of criticism, and the whole team was like on top of him after the game, hugging him, and they knew how much it meant to him. And the second goal I thought was excellent. The first goal, he got himself in a great position, kind of a lucky ricochet back to Trent. Trent slots it across, and Darwin definitely put it away. But the second one, he took a touch, and then just blasted it. And I thought the second goal was really well taken. That was a striker's type of goal. He didn't kind of panic. He took a touch, brought it in, and powered it home. Coach, what were your thoughts on the first and the second goal? The differences between the two.
Well, the first goal, I think you're right. The ball ricocheted back to Alexander-Arnold, and he put the ball across the box as you would tend to do in that situation. And Darwin Nunez was on hand just to tuck it in. So for a player at that level, I would say that's a great opportunity, and he's not going to miss that. The second one, though, showed a little more quality in the sense that the ball comes across to him from Elliott, and his first touch takes out the defender, and then basically it's he just powers it in, which is one of the key things with Darwin Nunez is he's very much a power player. And I know sometimes people will say that he should show a little more finesse. And actually, he did a year ago. I don't know if you recall the goal he scored a year ago against Brentford, where he scooped the ball over the goalkeeper.
Yes, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
I mean, but that seems to be more of the exception to the rule. But I think long term, if he's going to keep his game moving in the right direction, he has to, kind of increase the range of his finishing. I think it's good that he's a power player. He's strong. He's 2-footed, good in the air. But there come times when, you've got to show a little bit of guile to get the goal. But anyway, the point is he was there for the first goal where he should be. He tucked it in as he should. And then the second goal showed some quality in terms of his first touch and then the power of his finish.
There's been talks about potentially, inquiries for Darwin from other clubs, and I kind of joked around with the Scousers talking about, well, maybe this will up his price a little bit. I want to love him, I really do. Just these spurts come and they go, and I don't know what it is about Darwin and this team and not it like fully clicking, because when he was at Benfica he was a handful, and coach, I want him to stay, I think, but I also understand if he goes. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I was listening to a lot of radio stations over in England today after the game, and some of the fans are very pro Darwin Nunez, but you still got a group that say, okay, it's a flash in the pan. He's not really of the quality to be a striker for Liverpool. And I think, broadly speaking, I don't think that we're going to know where he stands until the summer comes along, because at that point, I think the manager will either decide he wants him and there's a place and there's a role for him at Liverpool Football Club, or alternatively, he will move him on and he'll get somebody in who potentially fits the mold of what he's looking for. Overall, though, looking at his performances with Liverpool, he's played roughly 120 games and he scored 39 goals. So you're talking about one goal every 3 games. Mm-hmm. So it may not be the ratio of an Erling Haaland, but I mean, how many players have got his ratio? Yeah. So I think that's a decent return for a striker. I think that's decent, and I think that's something to build upon. And overall, as I say, I don't think we'll know his fate at Anfield until the season's over, because he'll have had a complete season under Arne Slot, as will all of the players, and Slot will make the adjustments to his squad as he desires. Because as we've noted before, and I think so many other people, both fans and pundits looking on, have noted, he's come in, he's inherited a very strong squad. He's kind of made little adjustments here and there, but overall, he has kept Jurgen Klopp's squad together. And he's done a great job with them. And longer term, though, he will need to put more of his own stamp in terms of personnel on Liverpool FC, and it seems obvious, but that's the way that it is.
Yeah, as we kind of look at around, strikers around Europe, and minus Erling Haaland, you kind of think like, okay, who could come in and perform under this type of team? And there's a lot of really good strikers. There's a couple of top tier strikers, but Coach, like, is there anybody that you kind of look around and are like, well, that would be interesting if he were to come here? Like, for example, Victor Osimhen, who's now playing in Turkey, but Napoli doesn't want him. And however, my understanding is he wants, Erling Haaland type money, and that might be too much for Liverpool. But is there any strikers that you kind of look around, even within England, that are like, well, that person might be interesting here?
Well, you could say somebody like Alexander Isak, but I don't think he's leaving.
Yeah, that would take a huge war chest. Yeah.
I mean, like, there's good attacking players around. There's nobody that kind of comes to mind in terms of being a target man. I mean, there's Rory Delap, who's at Ipswich.
Mm-hmm.
Not on a slot would take a look at him and think, yeah, like he's the kind of fellow that I'd like on my team. I've absolutely no idea, but he seems like a very competent young striker, and he has some good years ahead of him. I suppose the counter argument to that is he may be 2 or 3 years younger, but there's Jayden Danns, who, I mean, from what I've seen, I mean, like, it's a lot of quality. I mean, because I do watch some of the reserve team games and the youth games and what have you, and he looks like he's got a lot going for him. The unfortunate thing with Danns is he's only come into contention in the last few weeks because he had an injury.
Mm-hmm.
So is he one to keep in the back pocket, as it were, and then they bring in somebody else? But my gut feeling is that Arne Slot is going to want strikers or forward players that offer more than just scoring goals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because one thing that I had a couple of fans talking about today, well, Darwin Nunez doesn't score enough, but yet Liverpool have a number of players who can score goals. So, mentioning Haaland again, I think Manchester City has become too reliant upon him.
Yeah.
Liverpool, okay, Salah has been prolific, and if Salah was to move, that would be a gap to fill. But just from the returning personnel, like, they have a lot of players there that can score goals, and with more time and more bedding into Slot system, then who knows which player kind of takes the mantle from Mohamed Salah. Because you can go through the past decade or so. There was Luis Suarez, then he moves on, then there's Sturridge, moves on, Mane. So all these players have their time. And if Salah was to go, I do think it would be a blow, and part of it might be to the psychology of the squad. But at the same time, everybody has their day, and there's always somebody new kind of comes to the fore.
Yeah. One name that also kind of sticks out to me is John Duran for Aston Villa. He's a very good striker. That'd be interesting as well. However, I don't know if Aston Villa needs to do anything as far as choosing between Ollie Watkins and John Duran. I think they could probably just play Watkins and then bring in Duran, kind of a super sub. But coach, another talking point that impacts Liverpool was Arsenal up 2-0 against Villa. Villa comes back, scores 2. Very exciting game, but Arsenal dropped points, and you could tell that it was a blow for them. Heads were down after that game for Arsenal. So interesting how kind of, last week they won, we tied. This week we win, they tie. So it's an interesting kind of back and forth that keeps going. But Liverpool 6 points ahead, I believe, now. And 6 points ahead of Arsenal. Nottingham Forest to play tomorrow. Coach, we're keep trucking along here, and we still have a game in hand and 6 points ahead. I mean, this is an ideal place to be. And as these games kind of, as more games come along, we get closer to the end of the season. Now we got 17 games left, something like that. We have 18. Everybody else for the most part after this game week will have 17. It's getting down pretty close to a standpoint here where we, you can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, but I feel like a broken record in as much as there's still a lot of games to be played, and
for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things can happen. whether it's injuries or suspensions or whatever.
Right.
So, I mean, Arsenal are a good team, and logically, they are Liverpool's biggest rival. I mean, like there was kind of a feeling, well, maybe Newcastle can come into it, and then obviously they get shocked this morning.
Yeah, they got blown out. Yeah.
So the media has made a little bit out of the fact that Liverpool have drawn a few games recently, and kind of said, "Oh, well, is this a blip or whatever?" And maybe it is in one sense, because they're not winning every game. But the point is they're not losing either.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas the chasing pack, they may draw games, but they also lose games. And so, as things stand right now, Liverpool is in a strong situation.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I feel as we get deeper into the season is, and I've been thinking about this, Liverpool the last few years, if you analyze the seasons, there's been a couple of years where they've kind of chased the quadruple. Last season being one, and then a couple of years before that. And it's kind of looking like we could be moving into that kind of situation again. And so I can't help but wonder whether it would be better if they weren't chasing the quadruple. Because if you think about it, I mean, Manchester City have had a very stacked team for a number of years. And I don't think they ever came as close to the quadruple as Liverpool did. Liverpool kind of punched above their weight.
Yeah.
And certainly, what was it, 2-3 years ago, they came, it all came down to the last week of the season. Last year, they kind of ran out of gas at the end of March, start of April.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little bit different, and obviously there've been a lot of injuries and everything that went along with that. But I can't help but wonder whether kind of chasing trophies on all fronts will turn out to be detrimental to the team this year. Still too early to say. The Tottenham game, the first leg of the Carabao Cup, in my opinion, is by far the weakest performance we've seen from Liverpool this season, especially in the first half. I thought they were awful, actually. And so I don't know if that was kind of an indicator that it could be too much. And even though, I mean, players like Elliott got on today, does the manager need to rotate more? So, for example, like they're going to play in France on Tuesday against Lille.
Mm-hmm.
And do they really need to play their strongest team in that game? Can they afford to rest Van Dijk and Salah, for example? I mean, Salah's blowing a bit hot and cold right now. Although there were two moments of brilliance in the game from him today, I thought, but overall he looked slightly off pace. So if they lose on Tuesday, bigger picture time, is that a critical loss for them? I don't think it is really.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because they're going to qualify somewhere in the top 8. I don't think it's critical that that they finish top. Might be nice to say that they finish top, but it's nothing more than that because, as we all know, once it becomes knockout, anything can happen.
Right.
So the point is that I think that they've done their job so far in the Champions League, which was finishing the top 8. Then they don't have to play the playoff round. And it's kind of worked out because that's where they're going to plug in the Everton game.
Right.
And, I just think it's a better situation because they've got a lot of games back to back. They've got Lille, then they've got who do they have?
Ipswich.
Home.
Yeah, Ipswich.
And then is it the Cup after that?
No, I think it's PSV right after that.
Yeah, they play PSV and then they tough game against Bournemouth.
Yes.
Who I watched this morning. I don't know if you watched that game, but they're a good team, yeah, I mean, Kluivert's goals, especially the third one, I thought was very, very high quality.
Yeah.
So so like they're full of confidence right now, and it'll be a tough game. That.
Yeah, with the the Champions League, we're at 18 points. Barcelona's at 15, and there's a lot of teams at 13 points, including Lille. So Lille kind of really needs this one, and it's going to, you want to say that this one's at Anfield, Coach. It's not in France.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So my mistake.
That's nice to stay home, not having to travel, and then Ipswich. But I think obvious rotation, right, at Lille, like it has to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he's not. If you actually analyze his rotation so far, I think only in the Carabao Cup have we seen serious rotation, and then actually against Tottenham we didn't see that.
Right.
And that was, as I said, in my opinion, that was their weakest performance of the season. So I can't help but wonder whether there was a little bit of an element of fatigue.
Yeah.
Because they were poor compared to some of their previous performances.
Do you think Costas gets a start again against Lille and rest Robertson a little bit more, and Bradley gets a start for Trent?
I think that these would be good rotational moves.
Yeah.
My gut feeling with the left back situation is that when it comes down to the big game, like the must-win game, that he'll favour Robertson. That's is my feeling. But I think that he's, Robertson had a lot of injuries last year. Obviously, he's into his 30s now. So I think that what he's trying to do with Robertson is manage his game time so that he's relatively fresh. Because certainly when the international games start again, he's an ever-present for his country.
Right.
So I think that that's part of the plan, or that is the gut feeling that I get when it comes down to Andy Robertson. I think that this would be an excellent game for Bradley to play. It would be a good game maybe to rest Van Dijk, good game to rest Salah, a good game to start Elliott.
Yeah.
Whether or not he does that, my gut feeling is he probably won't. But he knows more than you and I, and he's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But I think that from a Liverpool perspective, if we're going to look for the rest of the season, if the team's going to be chasing trophies on four fronts, then I think he's got to rotate, or he might have to rotate a little more than he's done right now.
Yeah, I think to me, Curtis getting game time here, I think would make sense. I think, like you said, Harvey Elliott maybe starting in place of Salah instead of playing him through the middle. That'd be interesting. The left side, I think, Gakpo, Diaz. I'm not sure who else. Oh, I guess you could do Chiesa. I'm worried about his, injury stat, that he acquires, and unfortunately Jota picked up something. I mean, just when he comes back and then he picks something back up, I mean, I can't even imagine what's going through his head. Like, geez, I'm back, and then all of a sudden I'm back on the shelf with a muscle injury. It must be infuriating.
Well, yeah, and I think while everybody's focused on Darwin Nunez, maybe the manager looks at the situation in the summer and goes, okay, Diogo Jota's a good player, but he gets injured too much. He's just one of those players that seems to pick up little niggly injuries all the time. I mean, like, contrast him, say, to Mohamed Salah.
Right.
I mean, like, Salah's had a couple of injuries, but he's not always tweaking muscles and all that kind of stuff. He's he's somebody that you can rely on to be fit and ready to play. And unfortunately, Jota falls into the category where he's a good player, good movement, can score goals, good finisher. He has a lot of qualities, but yet you can't rely on him all the time. And as several people have pointed out, and I think yourself included, last year Jota wasn't there for the crucial run-in, and that's one of the reasons, or one of the things that contributed to Liverpool's late season slump.
Yeah. You talked about the blip and, potential blip going through, but you mentioned that we're not losing games. And if you go through a blip and you're still picking up points, granted they're not the 3 points, but you're still picking up a point here and there. Like, I think it's pretty significant at the end of the season. Going into the 90th minute in this game, I was like, another tie. Okay, not the end of the world, but, with 3 points would be fantastic. And, we did get the 3 points, but I thought that this was the game that Liverpool kind of come back out of their blip. And although for 89, 90 minutes, it didn't seem like that they were going to get across the line, they did. Mm-hmm. And 2-0 is the score line. Granted, it was a very difficult game, but, now we have Ipswich in the next league game. Not saying, Ipswich beat Chelsea also, so Ipswich is not to, they're not a team of the caliber of Liverpool. However, they can cause problems. And in the first game of the season, that first half, they gave us all sorts of problems. So, but it's an easier game with all due respect. But then Bournemouth, and then Everton with a double game week. So in game week 24, those two games. Again, Bournemouth, you said it yourself. Bournemouth looked fantastic this morning. I mean, Kluivert looked great. Semenyo's a good player. Kirkez was really good. That team knows how to play, and they played a good system. But it's still not Arsenal, Chelsea back-to-back. They're not these upper-tier teams. And then Wolves, and then we have two tough games back-to-back, City and Newcastle. So no rest for the weary, I guess. I mean, Plymouth is in there. Tottenham's second leg is in there. The two Champions League games are in there. So I think, Coach, if we get to March and we have a 6-point lead, pretty significant. Pretty significant.
That would be a different story. We're still in January. We're halfway through January, and there's a lot of games to be played, and quite a few of them are games that aren't Premier League. So again, it comes down to this chasing trophies on four fronts: fatigue, injuries, other issues. Like there'll be travel as well.
Yeah.
And then they're going to come up against teams. And we saw this a little bit with the Manchester United game where the team had a week to prepare.
Yeah.
And most of the weeks Liverpool are not in that situation. Liverpool are traveling to games, they're playing games. And so most of the training is going to revolve around, just trying to recover from the last game. So, Liverpool will have different pressures on them, and then there's things that you can look at the game today and say, I think Liverpool played well overall. Listening to some of the fans, who call in on the radio, I don't think that they'd be agreeing with me. I mean, basically because Liverpool wasn't winning, but they were creating a lot of chances, and they were working very, very hard. And I think in all these games that you've highlighted recently that Liverpool drew, the opposing team is starting to run out of gas towards the end.
Yeah.
Because the only game, I mean, if you look at Manchester United, you have a little pal here. Look at the Manchester United game and Fulham and Nottingham Forest. Late in the game, late in the game, Liverpool, kind of had them hemmed in.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was a good performance today by Liverpool. Brentford, as you said, made it difficult, but there was one significant area that Liverpool need to improve in,
Mm-hmm.
and that's restarts, because they had a lot of corner kicks.
Yeah.
And too many of them, didn't get past the near post.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to create anything in those kind of situations. And I think it's great. A lot has been made of the fact that Arsenal's had to rely on set plays this year.
Yeah.
Liverpool are in a situation where they seem to be able to create goals from open play. Huge plus. But if they can improve their restarts,
Mm-hmm.
because there's always a significant number of goals scored from restarts,
Yeah.
and against Nottingham Forest, like the goal that they scored was from a corner kick.
Yeah.
So I think that's one area that I'm sure that Arne Slot will be trying to get the team to think about and improve upon, because when it comes down to the acid test at the end of the season, that is what may make the difference.
Yeah, it was like something like 14 corners. I mean, it was a big number.
Yeah, and it was kind of monotonous in the sense that they'd have a corner kick, and then it wouldn't get past the first defender, and then it's cleared, and it's wasted basically.
I think that, that's an area that some improvement, some goals coming out of there would be nice. And I'm kind of thinking as you're talking about restarts, I can't remember a free kick goal that we've scored. I can't even remember one from this year. I don't know. Maybe there are a couple that have slipped my mind, but also how Arne Slot has used the substitutions. Last game against Nottingham brings in Tsimikas and Jota. Tsimikas takes the corner. Jota scores the goal. Brings in Nunez. Nunez scores 2. He's granted they're good players. He's not just bringing in scrubs per se, but they're really good players. But Slot seems to the first halves are seeming to be relatively inefficient, and then the second half he makes changes, little tactical changes, and then brings on the right person to finish the game off. So it's been interesting how that's been kind of laid out. But I think, Coach, you're right. Some free kicks, some corners. Let's add a couple. We're not asking to be Arsenal here, but if we can add a couple here and there, that would be massive. It would be really massive for the team. Coach, with Ipswich up next, what are your thoughts of that game? What do you as you kind of as the season's rolled on, we've seen some good performances from Ipswich and some not so good performances, but what kind of game are you anticipating? And as I need to look here, I'm trying to get it is at Liverpool, so it's at Anfield.
Yeah, it says Anfield. Ipswich plays tomorrow against Manchester City.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably watch that game and just to see how they're doing. I mean, most of the games they've played so far this season, they've kind of. There's been a handful of games where they've been not at the races, but I'd say the majority of the games where they've played well, and then later in the game they've seemed to fold a little bit.
Like Southampton did to Manchester City earlier on Thursday. Did you see that?
Who's that? I thought it was somebody else played Southampton.
No, Manchester United played Southampton.
I thought you said Manchester City. Yeah. I mean, they've had a few games like that, but I think right now, I'm sure that Liverpool will be scouting the game tomorrow, the Manchester City game.
Yeah.
But I think that the priority emphasis on the team will be for the Tuesday Champions League game.
Yeah.
I mean, but This will be a classic example. I mean, like Ipswich seem to have a good young coach there.
Mm-hmm.
His team's well organized. They will have a week to prepare for Liverpool.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll enter with a game plan. And I know some people will be thinking, "Oh, it's Ipswich that they're at the bottom. This is an easy 3 points." But my gut feeling is that Ipswich will have a decent game plan. And coming back to this thing about the first half, second half,
Yeah.
if you actually look at the Forest game, for example, Liverpool actually started quite brightly, and they had 3 shots in the first 10 minutes, all of which were over the bar.
Yeah.
Well, but at least they were doing some good positive things. Then Forest scored. And then after that, as I kind of said earlier, they were so solid that Liverpool was struggling to even get the ball into the box. I wouldn't say that Liverpool were playing badly. It was just that Forest were really good at what they were trying to do and very, very effective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing, and you saw this a bit today as well, is Liverpool this year don't seem to score many early goals. They certainly create chances,
Yeah.
but they don't seem to put them away early. And so I think that's why there's this kind of prevailing idea Liverpool are better in the second half, and then Slot will make his changes. And he does. Like he does kind of tweak things and adjust things. And as you rightly pointed out, I mean, he has some good quality players to bring on.
Right.
But he's smart enough to do that, and he's got a good sense of when to do that as well.
Yeah. Well, we have a game on Tuesday against Salil at Anfield. It's nice that the boys get to stay home for a week, so that's probably going to be a good thing. When they get home, they get to sleep in their own beds, and we'll be home for a while. So that's a good thing, I think, from a standpoint of getting into your normal routine with, they all have families, they all have lives outside of football, and to be able to just kind of get back home and have a couple games at Anfield will be special. So, Coach, hopefully another magical European night. I think we're both in agreement that we'd like to see some rotation, not the most important game, but Liverpool are have good players across the board, so that it won't be a bad team that'll show up. It'll be interesting to see this game. I don't watch a lot of French league, and I know Lille has done well. There's been some players transferred out of there that are known across Europe, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Coach, as always, thank you for your insight, and folks, everybody, please subscribe. We will be posting these a little bit more aggressively after games, whether it's me or Coach or both of us. We want to get some thoughts out right after games. So that's kind of the plan here with us. And as always, thank you so much for listening, and take care, everybody.
Bye now.